Amazon. Now, why Amazon? Well, let's just start here. Hey everyone, I hope you had a great trading week. So we're going to go over 10 stocks to buy for next week. Now in this group, there will be some short-term trades, a couple longer-term ones, and a couple shorts. To just start this off, this I like a lot. I like these trades where we have a dividend that comes out. People sell because of the X dividend, and then we go higher. SWX is in the right sector, energy. It went ex-dividend today, and we can see the selling that transpired because of that, giving us this long-legged doji. We love long-legged dojis. Why? Because they give us uncertainty, and that uncertainty then becomes defined by this pattern. We saw a great example of this exact pattern today in Apple. I'll point it out in a moment. But what we want to see is we just want to see it flip that level. 92.24 is all you're looking for. Get above 92.24, and we have this huge flag right here. Now, if we go out and look at multiple time frames, you can see what we're heading right into. But this is pretty fascinating stuff. So put a line right here, okay, and you look at where you'd flip to if you get through that, right? So in other words, all we're gonna do is just get through that 92.24, okay? And then after you get through that, you're gonna wanna watch that 92.94. See, when you use multiple time frames, it gives you another point of perspective, but you have to think about it from that perspective sometimes. You have to understand that somebody there bought. So when it gets up to that level, sometimes they don't wanna own it anymore. So we just need to be aware of that's there. Now, you have a beautiful little base right here, but you also have some really nice upper channel. So you have a really nice base that's been going on for some time, but even if you take this lower channel, you can easily pop up to this. Let's call it 110. So you could see a decent move here. You could see about 20 points. Just make sure that you break above that 92.24. I can put in the indexes, the indicators rather, but it's kind of pointless. I mean, we're going to know just by looking at it, we're above all of them. So there's not really much to it. Volume picked up. We'd like to see more volume on the breakout. But today, really, all you're going to just see is dumping because of the dividend yield. No different than what happened on Exxon, right? But Exxon's just a little bit different of a name. See how that broke down on ex-dividend? You can see that right here. And then all of a sudden, what's it do? Reverses. And Exxon will be at highs very, very soon, especially with what's going on globally. And there's that long-legged doji that I promised you. So here's a massive long-legged doji. You might have seen this in yesterday's video, in the daily video. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel, click all notifications, because I put out daily videos for short-term trades for the next trading day. And you only get notified if you click all notifications, apparently. See that? See how you pop above that? That's what you're looking for here. And I think that that's exactly what could happen. Now, this is a name that people are going to be familiar with a lot, MOS. It's one we played with on and off for some time. Now, it's in the right space, Fertilizer. We know what's going on overseas. We're fully aware of the war that's going on in Russia and Ukraine and how that's affecting food prices and food shortages, right? We just saw riots in Sri Lanka. They're having issues in Iran. We're going to see this continue. It's going to be a theme of 2022, sadly, until this ends. But you would look at this and just go, well, I've got this 50 and the 21 crossing down. I've got a death cross. Sure, it's not the 50 and the 200, but it's a death cross nonetheless. Well, there's a couple things going on here that we should be paying attention to. Yes, this is happening. And if you overlay these, you can see that you're finally above the 5, which you haven't been for some time. And now you're also, what? Above the 8. So you're above the 5 and the 8, and you haven't done that for 2 weeks. So let's just get through this. Moving averages, I do pay attention to this, but they are lagging indicators. In other words, a lagging indicator is something that is calculated based upon the past. It's not telling you where you're going to go. It's not based upon the future. There's only a couple future indicators, such as RSI, which determines the magnitude of a move that's coming, right? And you can kind of use that and determine a pattern and then see if a pattern exists and then see if you can benefit from said pattern. And you can put trend lines on them. See how we just broke that trend line and we're heading to that 50 line to flip to overbought, or flip towards heading towards overbought rather versus being oversold. So if you see something like that, you might want to pay attention to it. And then if you come up here and you just look at that and go, well, we haven't broken that trend line yet. Well, that doesn't really coincide with what we're seeing here, does it? If we put that line exactly where this line is and we line them up perfectly, we can see that we've already broken. Well, RSI is what? A leading indicator, not a lagging indicator. So we want to pay attention to leading indicators more than lagging indicators. You may want to remember that. But what's really nice about this, you had this megaphone, and we were talking about this earlier. About a couple of weeks ago, we said, hey, we have this bear flag, and in this bear flag, is a megaphone. So here's your little megaphone pattern. You can see that right there. You can see the break of the megaphone back in the megaphone, and here's your bear flag. Now, that has played out and you're back in there. But what's even more interesting is now that you are at a level where you're trying to just get above this, that's all we're trying to do. And you have a gap right in here, and you have a gap today. So what do you have? You have an island gap reversal after this one. So you had an island gap down here that turned into this megaphone pattern. Then you have an island gap reversal here. What do we need in order to see this come to fruition? We need to see it get above this level, 63.44. Look, wheat's not going to go higher, corn's not going to go higher, and then fertilizer's not go higher. It just doesn't make any sense, right? We all know the wheat trade. We know that this is going limit up. Just excuse this parabolic line. We'll clear that up. We're all aware that wheat's going up. We're all aware that corn is trading higher. So you're going to need fertilizer. Obviously, people could say these got ahead of themselves. Just watch that 63.44. After you get through 63.44, then we can start overlaying and saying, well, I don't know that we're going to get through the 50. I don't know that we're going to get through the 21. But let's at least get up and in the trade before we say it's going to reject at 66, 67. Nobody has a crystal ball. And I like this, and I like the way it's setting up, and it's in the right space. MUSA. So these types of companies that come out and have retail space for fuel are going to wind up having a nice little run here. Why? The amount of capacity constraints that are going on are not going to go away. For those that aren't aware, that you're seeing refineries that they're at full capacity. I was not aware of this because I'm not an expert in the field, but I was talking to one, and apparently that we are losing about 2 million barrels of gasoline a day based upon these restrictions that are going on with Russia. So I was not really aware of that was happening globally. I knew there were issues with natural gas, but I wasn't aware of the refinery aspect of that. What that's going to lead to, and what we were discussing even in the trading room today, was just a shortage of diesel. But you're seeing these kinds of trades set up. Here's your little wedge. Your wedge looks like you're setting up here, right? But you have that level that you're having trouble with. 249.11, flip 249.11, and then see what happens. But this is really setting up very nicely. Now, if we get rid of all these indicators and we just look at these lines, you can kind of see right here, right? See that? Well, you'd look at that and go, well, just draw that perfectly so you can see it. So you would look at that and go, well, we bopped out, we came back, we bopped out again, we came back, we bopped out again. Just flip that level, okay, 29.11, and close over it, 249.11. Just close over it is really what you want. You want to see a close over that. 251.51 could also be used, but I like this, and I think this is going to be around. I think this is going to be a big mover. You can see what's going on here and how we've been moving on the monthly. Always look at multiple time frames. It really paints a picture. This energy trade is not going to go away, sadly. It's not. And we all know why it's doing what it's doing. Probably wouldn't hurt to overlay we don't really need you can put the 21 in, but let's look at the 8 and let's look at the 5. And again, I just want to point out things. I want to point out things that are good, and I want to point out things that are bad so that you can make a more informed decision. We need more volume on the break. Okay, we really want to see 2 times volume on that break. CELH, this is one that we've played before and we've done exceptionally well with. Celsius Holdings, they make the energy drinks. It's really interesting what's going on in the energy drink space, and we're going to really dive into that because there's another name that's in the energy space, energy drink space, that's moving. So let's get rid of all these indicators and let's just talk about this. So here's our lines, right? We can see this getting tighter and tighter and tighter, okay? This is not the best looking chart in the world, but there are some things that are developing with it. Now you can see your lines right here. Let's put this in for a moment, and let me just show you this over the 50 and the 21. So you're having these 50 and the 21 and you're finally flipping it, right? But what's more important about that is this. Look at this relative volume. Now let's get rid of these for a moment because we're going straight. And when you're going straight, meaning that you're trendless. And by trendless, I mean you're basing, right? We're all aware of where this was. We're all aware this is a stage 4, the way this is coming in, right? And we're all aware that now we've been basing for a period of time. I'll actually just draw the base in so you can see. So we're fully aware that that's there. Look at this volume. This volume was on when? On earnings. Okay, so after earnings, you had 5 times volume. I'd like to see at least 2. This is exactly what you're looking for. Now, if you overlay this with this, just put the 50 in, we know where the 21 is. We know who's buying around the 50, and it's been battling there for some time, but overlay a wedge line, and you can see exactly what transpired today. And this is what I like. So I sat right on that wedge line. okay, and I couldn't break. So all I'm looking for is this. I'm going to make this very simple. You closed at 56.42. If you get over 56.42, you're going to want to consider a long position. Then you're going to want to use the stop of this 50-day. That'll be your stop on the day, right? About $3. But you want to close over this line, which will be 56.42. It's that simple of a trade. You don't want to wait until you're up to this 61.68 to try to put this in, especially in this kind of market. But I'm hopeful here. I'm hopeful that this monthly H might be over. You're seeing this get tighter and tighter. Now, we don't know where this May bar is going to finish, but we're getting tighter and tighter, and maybe this H is finally going to stop. Now, there's something going on in the energy space. I'm not sure what it is, but we're definitely seeing buying coming in. And again, I will show another one in a moment. But I like that name, and this has potential. This has massive potential. You could start filling these gaps up to 75 and continue your way up. It's going to be a slow grind. It's not going to be a day. But this chart has massive potential. VTNR. So very quickly, when I go over these during the week, a bit of advice, you're going to want to create a list of the names that I caught. Why? Because when I go through them, it might not happen that week or that day. So if you have a database of these names and you keep it to about 100 that interest you, you can cycle through them. And if you just remember the BPAs, which I refer to as buy price area, or you can remember like the target or pivot area, you can get in and out of them, even though obviously they're not in the new videos. They don't go away just because they don't trigger right away, right? This was a classic example of one that triggered, got people in, pulled the flim flam and came all the way back down. Now it's setting up to break out again. Watch this 1432. This stock is massively shorted. Now I use this site and I use several other sites, but this one is free and anybody can use it. It's shortsqueeze.com. You can come right in here and just type in any symbol that you want, VTNR, and they give you fairly accurate information that's up to date. Short interest, right now we have 3.8 days to cover. They're increasing their position as it's going up, which means they're not the brightest people. And what you're seeing is roughly 15 million shares right now of short interest is outstanding. So we have a little short squeeze going on here, and while it's going up, they're deciding to short an energy company. Again, not the brightest move in my opinion. Now, what catalyst could be coming out for this? Well, there's several catalysts. One, we went through earnings already. But two, any move over this level, this 1432, is going to make anybody that's short cover. So think about it from that perspective. If you go out to this monthly chart, you can see what this has just been. It's just been an absolute roller coaster, to say the least. When you flip this long-legged doji, pay attention. Closing up here would be amazing. Just even closing right here would be great. But just watch this, because once you flip that level, this can go, right? We have that saying, first mouse gets what? The trap. Second mouse gets the cheese. So all you want to do is flip. That's all you're looking to do there, flip that level. Now, I did say there would be some shorts, so let's get into them. So coin was one that we were short during the week and in those videos and in the trading room, and maybe you saw one of the other videos, maybe you didn't, but let's just go through it. Earnings were abysmal. They were a disaster. I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to just give you regular volume here. And I'm just going to leave the 50 in for a moment. Might as well throw the 5 in too so you can see it already. But what's important about this is now we form a doji. Dojis give us uncertainty. I'd prefer long-legged dojis because they're more emphatic. But this still gives me an area. So all I'm looking for this to do is break 65.51, and then I would expect this to fill that gap fairly quick. I don't see a lot of buying coming in here. They have completely overhired. Revenues were a disaster. What just happened with Luna is not going to make this any better whatsoever. It's not going to make people feel warm and fuzzy about getting into the crypto space. Especially, it doesn't matter if you tell them it's going to be okay. No one believes you. Right? So they're going to want to see it for themselves. Now, this is a time where Bitcoin and Ethereum, if coming out of this unscathed, could help, right? It could help. But for now, we're just going to look for this trade. 65.51, if you break that, you could trade all the way back down. And I like this because it's a really clean trade. If you close above the open, the previous open, just get out of the trade. Okay, so in other words, if you gap down, right, and you get that 65.51 price, and then you wind up closing over the open, which is 69.17, just get out of the trade because you'd have a bullish engulfing and you're not going to want to be involved in that. You could always see more short covering, right? Depends on the market. But I think that these got a little ahead of themselves today because people got excited because Bitcoin didn't go down 10% today, and I'm recording this on May 13th. You're familiar with what happened. MicroStrategies, again, this was one that we executed perfectly around 199 in the trading room, and our target was 146 3/4. We nailed it. But what do we have here? We have a long-legged doji. Now, let's just lay this entire trade out so that you get it and understand what's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you if Bitcoin goes up. Okay, this is completely a Bitcoin trade. Right now, with where Bitcoin is, this is trading at par, meaning that MicroStrategies holdings are at par. Now, I put that little line there to show that you've rejected here twice from this breakdown bar. You can argue that this is important, 2020. I don't really think that it is, but you could use that as your stop. I would be using the previous day's close as my stop, meaning if I close over 204 and I'm short this at the 194 level, right here, and you can see the numbers over here, then I'd want to get out of the way. Now, over this line, break down that 194, you can get back to 146. You're going to want to watch Bitcoin. You don't need to watch Bitcoin so much with Coinbase, right? But you're definitely going to have to do it with MicroStrategies because essentially it's just trading as a proxy. It is possible that we hold this level, but even in that case that we hold this level, you always have a retest, right? There's always some kind of retest. So let's see if we get one. And we would use that line for it. Now, we mentioned other energy drink companies, and this is what I was talking about. And you can see this coming straight across. So this Monster Beverage, these are lines from before and previous. We can get rid of these. And let's just focus on this straight going across here. Look at this line. Look how clean that is. Now, you can actually go back even further with it and see how often these lines are. Right into that gap, straight across, okay? Resistance becomes what? Support, flips, goes. Simple trade. You have a little wedge line right here. You're starting to break out. All you're looking to do is get up and over. So you're looking to get to 89.14, flip 89.14, and then from there, now to start with, you're going to have to use this as your stop, which is going to be 85 3/4 roughly. And we'll just throw in the bells and whistles so you can see you're basically above everything. You flipped the 200 for the first time since you broke it and you closed above it. That's what made me interested in this. Your first target is going to be right here. Make sure you comment on these videos as well as share them. Sharing them is very helpful to me and supports the channel through your social media. But the comments are how I create the content. And that's the reason why I give target prices. So if there's something else that I should be adding, please let me know. I'm more than happy to throw it in. So I want to go through this one and we're going to get rid of all these indicators and come back to it. And Amazon. Now, why Amazon? Well, let's just start here. And I want to just be very clear with something, okay? See these gaps right here? See this breakout here and the low of this bar, 2186, right? The high of this bar right here, okay? You see where I'm going with this? Hopefully you can see where I'm going with this. So this happened in pre-pandemic times. This whole area right in here. Okay, that was affected. 2 years later, you're still dealing with that area and holding that area, okay? So when people say that support and resistance lines don't exist, they don't know what they're talking about, okay? They most certainly resist. There is somebody there exists. There's someone here that is saying, I want to buy. I want to buy right there. And they're waiting for that level, and that's what they're doing. That's exactly what they've done. Now, you are going into the split vote, I believe, coming up, not this week, but the week after. But this has been taken to the woodshed. And yes, it was a bad quarter. But you're looking at a company with a huge moat around it where nobody can touch it. And you're down about 40% in a very short period of time. I don't see how that lasts. I really don't see how that lasts without some kind of bounce. Now, if you look at the indicators outstanding, all I would focus on right now is this. Just focus on the 5-day. You have not closed above the 5-day since earnings. So in other words, this is the first day you've closed above the 5 days since earnings. Overlay RSI with it so you can see how grossly oversold you were right here, right? You had a 22 reading. If you take a look at this, the last time that you were down this low, you bounced. And you just kind of go through it and say, geez, whatever happened here? Did we bounce? Well, we bounced there as well. Okay, come down to here. We're more oversold now than we were during pandemic time. And I have two other times which clearly shows breaking over this and back over gives me a short-term bounce. That's good enough for me. All I'm looking for out of this is to get above that level, 2263. look, if you don't want to buy the stock, you can always do options. How far out you want to go? I would go out to June personally and try to look at something up in here. I know that they're a little expensive, but probably like the 2500s for June. I'd have to do more work on them to give you an exact number. And then just kind of look at this on a weekly. Well, that's interesting. Looks like hammer time, right? There's a hammer right there. So that's pretty much exactly what we want to see. Okay, get up and over that hammer and you have a perfect morning star position. So they're the names, and I just want to run through what's going on out there. These are the cues on the daily. We're above the 5. Usually when we're above the 5 for one day, we've been rolling right back down. We're going to have to be aware of that, but we really haven't been this oversold here for some period of time. I want you to focus on this bond market because this is working. Okay, let's get rid of all these annotations. They're all from the newsletter. If you don't subscribe to the newsletter, there's a link in the description. Please subscribe. It's free. But what I like about this is if they're buying bonds and they're buying bonds for a hedge, that gives them the confidence to add to equity positions. See, when the hedge wasn't working and it was going straight up, it scares everybody because your hedge isn't working and your equity positions aren't working. So that's why we saw this exacerbate. Now with the bonds holding, we're seeing a better position. Same thing here, bounces right off of here. 385, right? We were talking about this in the newsletter. Again, there's a link in description. Right to 385, bonk, bounces. Let's take a look at this on a weekly. Always look at weekly charts at the end of the week. Well, there it looks again. Looks like hammer time. So that's where we're at right now. Let's see what the next week brings. But today's action was definitely constructive. Everybody have a great weekend and trade to win.